What would you do if a loved one was forced into isolation simply so his or her money could be stolen? Seniors and dependent adults are being forced into isolation, often sedated at home or in locked care facilities while their assets are spent down. It sounds like Nazi Germany, but it's happening right now in America. It is silent torture. Trafficking through guardianship. The victim is silenced through isolation and medication. The family or supporter is silenced through defamation and sanctions. The act itself is kept silent through closed hearings and sealed records. This organized crime is not getting the national attention it deserves. On December 31st, 2018, President Trump proclaimed January as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. In the proclamation, he said, "Human trafficking is a modern form of slavery. It is not enough merely to denounce this horrific assault on human dignity. We must actively work to prevent and end this barbaric exploitation of innocent victims." So how does this silent torture of seniors and dependent adults relate to trafficking? According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, trafficking in persons has three constituent elements. The act, what is done, recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons. The means, how it is done, coercion, abduction, deception, fraud, abuse of power, a position of vulnerability, or the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person. Finally, the purpose, why it is done. Exploitation. In this case, financial exploitation, a form of servitude. Like sex trafficking victims, these victims are psychologically coerced through acts like isolation and the use of drugs. Instead of illicit drugs, psychotropic drugs are administered by nurses and hidden through HIPAA laws. It's all about the money, with $273 billion under guardianship and $68 trillion to be transferred from baby boomers over the next 25 years. There's a lot at stake.
We are Terri and Rick Black, the founders of CEAR, the Center for Estate Administration Reform. We have been fighting for victims of estate trafficking and fraudulent adult guardianships since we discovered my father being exploited in Las Vegas in the summer of 2013. We, like thousands of other families each year across America, quickly learned we would be unable to protect Dad as the local family court and its allies worked to further his exploitation and ours.
Estate trafficking through power of attorney, trust, guardianship, and probate frauds has become entitlement by the legal community nationwide. All they need is a complicit judge. Each year, hundreds of new victims and family members contact CEAR looking for acknowledgement of their experience and counsel on how best to combat well-networked parties intent on destroying their loved one and their family emotionally, psychologically, and financially through the dysfunction of our nation's equity court system. Isolate the victim, defame legitimate protectors, and liquidate the estate is their unspoken mantra.
Guardianship is the perfect crime. No one is being held accountable. Guardianship's laws have been weaponized to attack families and their estates using forced isolation and other forms of human rights violations. This is about big money and the powers that don't want it to end, but it is still pure evil.
In some instances, the crime may not be through guardianship. It may simply mimic the pattern and practice, with forced isolation being the common theme. Isolation, including blocking specific supporters and loved ones, facilitates undue influence, exploitation, and fraud. A passionate voice on this issue is Philip Marshall. He went to court to protect his grandmother, Brooke Astor, in one of the most famous elder abuse cases. She had an estate worth over $130 million and was called the First Lady of Philanthropy.
I am Philip Marshall, founder of Beyond Brooke, a cause-based campaign advocating for elder justice. My work is informed and compelled by hard-learned lessons gained when I helped save my grandmother, Brooke Astor, New York City philanthropist, from abuse and exploitation by her only child, my father. As perpetrators know, isolation alone provides them an opportunity. Added isolation as a form of abuse is so strategic in compromising seniors and senior circles of support. Isolation may be achieved through state-sanctioned guardianship, which provides a weapon and a shield, allowing perpetrators to completely control incapacitated persons and then steal their net worth, self-worth, and lives. The litmus test for democracy is how we realize our social compact between society and self to empower both. Here, a caustic guardianship fails the U.S. and each of us as it strips citizens of fundamental rights.
All of our rights are at risk. This type of fraud could happen to anyone as long as you have some assets. The stories are heart-wrenching, with families doing all they can, even risking going to jail, fleeing their homes and the country to protect their loved ones. Then they are painted as the criminals.
I'm Joanne Bagalis from Minnesota. I, along with my mother, Catherine Bagalis, escaped her abusive guardian and have been living in exile in Greece since 2016. Guardianship as it stands today is an open invitation for criminals involved in human trafficking. There's no protection from becoming a target, literally becoming a slave victimized by criminals who are protected by judges that in turn are protected with impunity. Guardianship needs to be redefined to provide assistance, not to take away rights and steal people's identity. Removing rights does not solve problems, it creates problems. It allows a guardian to alienate a person from their life, their home, their livelihood, their family, their friends, their community, and from appropriate medical care. No one should be given the right to detain an innocent American citizen.
Hi, my name is Roger HILLYGUS, the son to Susan HILLYGUS. At the present time, the Reno Police Department have turned this civil case into a criminal offense and are now looking to indict me for allegedly kidnapping my own mother. This was legal and necessary to rescue Susan from a facility which had been proven to be neglecting her care. After asking Susan if she wanted to leave and be cared for by me, her son, she said yes, and with a big smile came to me, grabbed my hand, and we walked out of the locked facility with no questions asked. We spent a glorious week together with her brother and other family, and her health was improving, surrounded by family and off of the drugs. Had moved to California to escape the racketeering by over 20 attorneys who have stolen close to $1 million from Susan's trust, personal and real property. Complaints have been filed with the State of Nevada Attorney General, the Division of Financial Services, the Ombudsman, the Governor, the FBI, the Health and Human Services, all to no avail. This seems odd, as I served this state for 30 years as an emergency responder and believed in the rule of law, our rights, and our justice system. All this came to a stop when a SWAT team from the Los Angeles County Sheriffs busted through an unlocked door while I was sleeping and tased me and seized Susan. Susan flew back to Reno after being released from a hospital in good health and was dead 2 months later.
I'm Yolanda from Northern Virginia. I started an organization called Anastasia's Voice in honor of my sister Anastasia, who was taken by a major hospital here, placed under guardianship, and then forced into isolation away from family, friends, and clergy. 9 months later, she was made to die alone. Forced isolation by professional guardians is torture and inhumane, and is a civil and human rights violation.
My name is Tim Reed. My mother has been forced into a guardianship against her will by greed-driven lawyers and judges who refuse to discipline those lawyers, all while brazenly violating her most fundamental constitutional rights. What has been done to my mother and countless other parents and American citizens is a national disgrace. It must be stopped now.
Hi, my sister is a victim. I don't want her to know what they're doing with her money. Her guardian tried to isolate her from the family by lying on me because she knows I was her main caregiver, and I still am her main caregiver. So she put my family in all kind of mess right after our mother died. Tried to put my sister in a group home. She lives with her daughter, and she's in a perfectly good house, whether they're elderly, whether they're disabled, whether they're family members, friends, whatever. They're human beings too. They have rights. I have rights. And this just has to stop.
In the final years of her life, my mother, Ada Vocino, an Italian immigrant and widow who suffered from bipolar I and dementia, fell victim to financial abuse by the very nursing home caregivers we had trusted to keep her safe and comfortable. The last few years of my mother's life was fraught with watching the attorneys and judges separate her completely from her family until they fought for and won legal guardianship only 22 days before her death. She died all alone in the nursing home, having fallen from her bed without any safety rails at 70 pounds, completely isolated from her family. We had been prevented from seeing her for her last 3 years of her life. $400,000 and all her jewelry remain unaccounted for.
My name is Marcia Martinez Friedman, Florida. My mother's name is Lilia Martinez. Dementia since 2011. Forced isolation, it's cruel. It is a violation of human rights.
We are Matthew and Elizabeth Scarlatus of Ruston, Virginia. Our father, severely impaired by a stroke and having endured years of neglect by his spouse, was a victim of 2 bad actor guardians from 2015 to 2018. We naively agreed to a court-appointed guardian and a settlement agreement in an effort to protect our father. We were misled from the very beginning of the original guardianship, and our father suffered because of it. Our visitation was whittled away for illegitimate reasons, and we ended up paying over $300,000 in legal fees and paid visitation over these years to simply fight to see our father. It was a nightmare of injustice. We observed repeated severe physical neglect and abuse of our father during his stay at several substandard nursing homes. We reported these to the guardian, and we were told that we were interfering in his care management plan. We were punished by having our visitation severely restricted, which eventually led to paid supervision and outright banning. Please contact your federal and local representatives to push for passage and enforcement of laws such as the Guardianship Accountability Act to stop these corrupt practices and set up a nationwide system of improved guardian accountability and monitoring. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Venus Gist. I'm from California, and the name of my organization is Care for People Court. My advocacy work was birthed after my mother was placed in a substandard facility by a temporary conservator, left to decline and deteriorate. My family went in and rescued her, and she lives. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. The judicial powers are plundering the estates and preying on our elderly, and it needs to stop.
California, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Virginia, Nevada. At this point, no state is safe. This form of trafficking and racketeering is happening across the country. These actions are signed off on through the probate court, the same court that adjudicated turning living human beings into property through the slave trade. I've witnessed this atrocity firsthand with the abduction and forced isolation of my aunt, Dr. Lillie Sykes White. In 2012, she was entrapped in an involuntary guardianship in Florida. She had full mental capacity, and an Orange County judge saw no need for guardianship. Yet, the estranged granddaughter, who had just filed bankruptcy and had been removed from the trust, somehow hired the firm, a large law firm in Florida that knew the playbook. The firm launched a multi-year campaign to strip Lillie of her rights simply to control her $4 million estate. They manipulated the guardianship laws and initiated vexatious litigation, simply making things up and then litigating them. When the case was moved to Flagler County, they prevented Aunt Lillie from hiring the attorney of her choice. The new judge was in their pocket. The firm was able to get 3 court agents appointed, a guardian ad litem, an attorney ad litem, and emergency temporary guardian, all paid out of Lillie's assets. Together, this core group of 8 attorneys coordinated every move and every motion. On August 30th, 2016, 2 of these court agents abducted Aunt Lillie from a doctor's appointment with full support of the firm. My sister, SHEILA Kennedy Bryant, was there.
I had been with Aunt Lillie since 2012 when all of this started. That day, I think she had a premonition. She's a proud woman and doesn't usually cry. But that morning, she was crying. I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the doctor. The temporary guardian had forced her to go to multiple incapacity examinations, and it was traumatizing her. Aunt Lillie knew they were trying to take away all of her rights and felt constantly attacked. This was a regular doctor's appointment, so I convinced her to go. Now I truly regret it. We got there early and were in the waiting room for a long time. Aunt Lillie was really annoyed for having to wait. It was only after the guardian and attorney ad litem showed up for no legitimate reason that the receptionist called me in the other room to supposedly fill out some paperwork. When I returned, Aunt Lillie was gone. They took her and later refused to disclose her location even to my mother's attorney. Aunt Lillie was kidnapped right under my nose, and I still have nightmares.
There was no danger, no emergency, no notice, no legitimate reason for Lillie's abduction and isolation. Aunt Lillie custom built a home for retirement and wanted to age in place. She had the money to bring in any services she may need in the future. There were 2 police reports stating that she was safe in her home. One officer even said she didn't seem incapacitated. At that time, she still retained the right to choose with whom to socialize. She knew she was being exploited and was speaking out about it. They abducted her to silence her, and it almost killed my mother.
My sister Lillie is my only living sibling. There were 8 of us, and now there's only Lillie and me. After Lillie was abducted, and I learned that seniors don't get out of this situation alive, my blood pressure went up to 200 in the 200s. I was dizzy. I had pain in my head, and I was nauseous, and my daughters rushed me to the hospital. There was an upcoming hearing on Lillie's capacity, and I was supposed to testify. I'd been the duly appointed limited guardian per Lillie's testimony in the Orange County Court. I never thought she needed a guardian. It was just to try to keep off those attacks. Then the Flagler County judge simply suspended me for no reason and without a proper hearing. It went against civil procedure, and it felt like a legal lynching. There were 8 attorneys and the judge against me. As often happens in these cases, my own attorney abandoned me before the hearing and was working with the other side. The judge signed on his fees, and it all happened so fast. I'm a Columbia University trained journalist, and it's unbelievable how the attorneys can just make up things with no evidence, and it becomes a part of the court record. Even so, I had pertinent information regarding my sister's capacity, and my attorney filed for continuance. The judge denied it. Lily's own attorney requested to close me out of the hearing, and the judge went along with that. Lillie wasn't even at her own hearing. Lillie wasn't even at her own hearing. There's no cross-examination of the incapacity examiners. No due process. They'd already stripped Lillie of most of her rights. Now, in a closed hearing, they took away her final two rights, the right to vote and the right to choose with whom she would socialize. I was shocked, and my attorney was no use. We still didn't know where Lillie was, and no one was telling us. One day, she was in her home with us, and the next day she was gone. 6 months later, they removed me as guardian for illness, since they couldn't find any wrongdoing, which they'd been trying to find. My cardiologist confirmed that the blood pressure spike was not permanent and was tied to my sister's abduction. It didn't matter. Since I was questioning their actions, they got rid of me and then voided Lily's estate plan, dividing up her money for their fees.
Lillie was rendered a non-person through the stroke of a pen, like a sale of a slave on the auction block. My mom and sister were deemed uninterested parties, locking them out of key legal proceedings and giving the attorneys the ability to hide the financial records in a bifurcated or secret docket. It was a coordinated, strategic move, part of the playbook, the pattern and practice that happens across the country. We recently found out that just about a week after that fated hearing, Aunt Lillie escaped the care facility during Hurricane Matthew. That was not the act of a fully incapacitated woman. She made it home to Palm Coast, but my mother and sister had already evacuated upstate to Tallahassee. It's devastating to think about it. Like capturing an escaped slave, the guardian took Lillie again, moved her to another county an hour away, and told her neighbors that she had died. The family still didn't know her location. This group of predators actively hid Aunt Lillie from us for over 2 years until we found her through private investigators. One of the same investigators who helped break the Julian Epstein case. Before the other side knew we had located her, we got in to see Aunt Lillie in November 2018. On camera, she requested to get her rights back and to be with her family. She had been dreaming every night of traveling with her sister. My mother filed the new information with the court. It didn't matter. Aunt Lillie's voice continued to be ignored.
Now, even though we know where Lillie is, we can't speak with her. This granddaughter is a puppet for the firm. These criminals have created a passcode for anyone who wants to have contact with Lillie, and they won't provide that to us. She is in a lockdown in a memory care facility, even though she has mental capacity and wants to leave. Lily's favorite time is the holidays. And this was her 4th Christmas with strangers. She has almost 50 nieces and nephews, and some of them have called and they've been turned away. Unless this has happened to you, you can't really understand how it feels to have someone you love in forced isolation. They're alive somewhere and you can't see them. It's pure evil.
The legislative intent is least restrictive options, but forced isolation seems to be the norm. This goes against a wide body of research on healthy aging. It doesn't matter if you're around a bunch of strangers. The social connection with loved ones is what's important. Those across the country who care about this issue agree. There needs to be greater judicial accountability.
Through my work, I'm aware that the United Nations has not directly addressed alleged trafficking of senior citizens in America through probate court and adult guardianship abuses. However, the UN Human Rights Council has confirmed at our organization's request that America lacks effective avenues for redressing organized U.S. legal system abuse, such as needed to accomplish the guardianship abuses that elder dignity combats. The problem seems to come down to inadequate judicial oversight, and it has literally prompted a human rights crisis in America. Your family could be next.
Unless we demand changes, your family could be next. As a member of the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders, I support the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, with a particular interest in number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. The way our equity court system is being abused today is undermining judicial integrity, our democracy, and core American values. There is no reason to isolate a person from loved ones. We can create a technology-enabled, supported decision-making model that allows seniors and dependent adults to thrive. It simply takes conscious and responsible leadership. As Mahatma Gandhi said, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. The President's proclamation stated, "As a nation, we cherish and uphold the notion that all people are created with inherent dignity and entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Human trafficking and enslavement robs victims of these God-given endowments. Modern slavery in all its manifestations is a blight on humanity and an affront to our fundamental values. We will not rest until we eradicate this evil. So to the President and the 2020 candidates, what are you going to do about forced isolation of seniors and dependent adults for the purpose of financial exploitation? How are you going to restore the lives of victims and their families? This is real, and we need your help. My aunt needs your help. Aunt Lillie has been in lockdown for 1,259 days. Here's what my brother has to say about that.
I've been fortunate to have traveled around the world, and America is the greatest country on the planet, bar none, to me. So it's so disturbing with my Aunt Lillie, who comes from a small town in North Carolina. She left that small town, earned a PhD, became Dr. Lillie White, didn't have a job that paid a tremendous amount of money, but saved money. She did things the American way. wasn't reliant on anybody else as she got older. She had done things the right way, only to have a group of very, very greedy people take away years of her life at the end of her life and take away her money. Now, very quickly, what I'd like you to do is imagine your mother, your grandmother. Put their faces, put the face in your head right now. Imagine them. And imagine the laughter, the holidays. Think about it for a second. Take a second, think about it. Now imagine someone taking that person away and stripping them of years of their life, stripping them of whatever their hard work and what they've earned. And all I'd ask is, please, get off the fence and help us bring Aunt Lillie home.
The leadership in Florida has failed. No one has come to Aunt Lillie's assistance. All of the relevant leaders know about her case. Governor Ron DeSantis was the congressman in Aunt Lillie's district when she was abducted in 2016. I spoke to his chief of staff at the time. She said he wished he could do something. Well, DeSantis, you're governor now. What are you going to do? I sent you an update package on this case last January, and your office has done nothing. As Philip Marshall brilliantly said in his 2015 Senate testimony, to be complacent about elder justice is to be complicit in elder abuse.
Until guardianship accountability and abuse are addressed and redressed, certain states, Florida included, will not be a safe place for seniors to live. It's time to free Lillie White, and in so doing, start to free each of us from the fear of knowing that we could suffer similar injury.
Restore Lillie White's life, liberty, and her belief in the justice that our U.S. Constitution guarantees.
It's too late for my sister, but Florida leadership can free Lillie Sykes White. Do the right thing and free her now.
The case of Dr. White is a prime and glaring example of how outrageously abusive guardianships have become. The state of Florida needs to step in immediately and free Dr. White from this atrocious new form of slavery.
Let's go in and save and rescue Dr. Lillie White so she can live in peace and harmony with her family.
Free both Lillies. We need your help.
Please free Lillie. Bring her home to her family. Nobody should be separated from their families when they loved ones. Let her just come home.
We must put an end to these corrupt courts of equity. It is too late for my mother, but there is still time to save and free Dr. Lillie Sykes White. She should be living with family, not locked away and isolated from family.
Where is Florida leadership on the Lillie White case? She needs your help.
I'm Tom Wright, producer of the IDA award-winning film Edith and Eddie. It's a story of a couple in their 90s who are torn apart by the system. I got to know Terry Kennedy right around the time she was separated from Lillie White, and she and her mother have been working very hard to be reunited. I would ask that anyone seeing this or becoming aware of their story do everything they can to reunite the family, to get Lillie back with those who love her.
What has happened to Dr. Lillie White since the summer of 2012 should enrage all Americans. What has occurred since the summer of 2016, when she was abducted by 3 well-networked attorneys, should have had people marching in the streets demanding justice long ago. We believe Lillie is still alive and can be saved. We also know the state of Florida, from the governor and Supreme Court on down, has refused to protect Lillie and her $4 million estate and hundreds of other similar victims.
Please help the Sykes family bring Lillie home.
This has to end. Please bring Aunt Lillie home. This started when she was 83. Now she's 91. Her Aunt Jane lived to almost 101. We have longevity genes, so Aunt Lillie has at least another decade to enjoy her life the way she wants to, Do the right thing and free her now.
Please let my sister Lillie come home alive and safe. My greatest fear is that they will kill her to keep her quiet, like they've done with so many others under these circumstances. Lillie deserves more. I want to see her. I want to hug her. I want to sing with her. I want to love her. That is our God-given right. And our right under the Constitution. We are the last of our generation in family. The last of the Mohicans. And we deserve to be together. I want to see my sister. I want to see my sister.
As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. To the public, if you feel these abuses are wrong and you want to help, please sign the petition below, asking Governor Ron DeSantis to free Dr. Lillie Sykes White now. The governor has the power to provide full access to my aunt, request a thorough audit and investigation, and ensure prosecution and retribution. Since my aunt's case is considered one of the most egregious in the country, getting her out alive could be a step to spark national dialogue and greater reform. 8 years of being attacked and almost 4 years in forced isolation is torture. If anything happens to her as we step up this advocacy, it will be murder, and Florida will have an even bigger issue on its hands. This goes beyond guardianship laws. This type of forced isolation is unconstitutional and goes against the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is the tipping point. Let's recognize forced isolation as a human rights violation and bring the full weight of federal and international law down on the perpetrators. Let these perpetrators be viewed as vile and reprehensible as child molesters. Let's address the bigger issue, the equity court crisis. In our equity courts, there is no jury. The judge is all-powerful. The attorneys can lie without risk of reprimand. There are no rules of evidence. There is no due process. It is open season on families. We need our civil rights and human rights organizations to join us. The ACLU, the NAACP, the United Nations Human Rights Council. Let's convene a multidisciplinary team to disrupt and redesign the entire system, starting with guardianships. I volunteer to be a part of the group and perhaps lead it with a think tank. We can do better for our citizens. As Dr. King said, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it is right. Governor DeSantis, do what is right and free Dr. Lillie Sykes White. President Trump, you pledge to take aggressive action to defeat human trafficking. We need to increase the transparency, accountability, and humanity in guardianships and the equity court system. Now is the time to do what is right and actually protect families. Now is the time to bring truth and dignity into our justice system. If you want to learn more about involuntary guardianships, watch The Deception of Protection. If you want to learn more about elder dignity and the White case, go to elderdignity.org.